This evening I want to share Jackie Young with Texas Health and Environment Alliance with you. Jackie Young is Houstonian, native, Texan, and she is also a Lone Star Chapter Environmental Awards winner because she did a little something just recently, and that was to work on behalf of 100% removal of the dioxin waste in the San Jacinto Waste Pits in the San Jacinto River. And she's building on these successes to go even bigger and larger and protect the public from further toxic sludge plumes. She wants to protect our groundwater, our surface water, and for everybody and everything. So will you help me welcome Jackie Young this evening?
Yes, that was the Environmental Justice Award I received last summer, and for those of you that I saw there, seeing you tonight is quite different. I actually received my award. I was in a wheelchair last summer recovering from a major operation. I really shouldn't have made the trip to Austin. I paid for it, but I was so honored to receive the award from the Sierra Club that I forced my parents to load me up in the car and drive me up there. So anyways, let me grab my clicker before I dive into this. Okay, so as she said, I am the Executive Director of Texas Health and Environment Alliance, and just a little bit about why I got so involved in what I do. I had someone tell me one time that he didn't understand why someone so young was so involved because it's not that common, and that I should maybe make it a little more known that I actually have been impacted by environmental quality, and that is a fact. I lived right here in between or near 4 Superfund sites. Now, those are national priority list Superfund sites, not the only issues in that area. This house right here was my mother's dream home. My family was fortunate enough to move there in the early 2000s, and it's in Highlands, which is by Baytown. And I happened to be studying environmental geology at the University of Houston, Clear Lake, when I was experiencing an average of about 7 seizures a week. I was actually 40 pounds lighter than I am right now, which is pretty crazy. I was losing my hair, I lost use of my hands, I was extremely sick. And here I wore these lovely wires all over for 72 hours because doctors could not figure out where my seizures were coming from. And I would have very bizarre episodes and extensive episodes lasting 10, 15 minutes, and doctors kept saying, neurologists kept saying, you'd be brain dead. You know, you would have some serious damage had that really happened. And I always had witnesses, and so I was seriously struggling with my health when I was in a hydrogeology course and decided to study our private well water and compare it to the city of Houston's tap water because I heard reports that their tap water was radioactive. So I thought, we've got this pristine well, I'm gonna, study our water. And it just became a snowball effect from there. And I'm by far not the only one who's been impacted in my family. So I began volunteering with a local group called the San Jacinto River Coalition. And in 2014, I began working to branch away from the nonprofit that started the coalition and founded Thea, Texas Health and Environment Alliance, so that I could do more of the type of work that I was doing as a volunteer and then as a program manager for the coalition. Our mission is to protect water resources and public health from the harmful effects of toxic waste. We are a 501c3. We received our C3 status in 2015, so we're absolutely still in our infancy, developing new organization. We use grassroots, going door to door, organizing communities, strategic media, as well as scientific research to do the work that we do. This group here, or this photo here, is showing a group of us standing in front of the San Jacinto River Waste Pits. The woman right here on the end is Lois Gibbs. There's a diverse group here from community members to elected officials, to Lois Gibbs, who I hope we all know about. Okay, so going back to this map that was up earlier, this is an outline of Harris County and the Superfund sites, the National Priority List Superfund sites. Now, this is not including archived sites, so sites that warranted investigation, but somewhere along the line a decision was made that they did not actually warrant a full cleanup. As you can see, there's a fair amount of abandoned waste sites or Superfund sites that need attention in our county alone. Okay, so where do we begin, right? Because I'm sure most of us didn't know, or maybe were unaware that there were that many sites. And you may even live by a Superfund site and may not be aware of it. And so education is really the first place we start with working to create an engaged and educated society. When I first started realizing that the water in my environment was likely the cause of my family's illnesses and our animals' illnesses, I didn't know who could help me. I didn't know where to turn, who to call. I thought, surely if something was wrong, the EPA would have knocked on my door, or TCEQ would have knocked on my door, and I think that there is that naivety that someone would let you know. And it wasn't until we started getting a bit of momentum that folks like Lois Gibbs and others started helping us. And so I want Thea to be the place that helps people like I once was. Is there a problem in my environment? And so education is the first place we start. And one of the things that I'm always amazed at the lack of responses, if you know where your water comes from. Most people don't know where their water comes from. And they'll say, oh, well, this district. Okay, that's a start, but where do they get the water from? So just even that basic question is so important. So Thea is working on traveling down two paths to fulfill our mission. One specifically with drinking water quality, and the other abandoned toxic waste sites. And our interest is specifically the interaction between these two paths and public health. First, I'm going to talk about some of our recent efforts with drinking water quality. I saw a report that the Environmental Working Group had spearheaded chromium-6 testing across the nation. Now, chromium-6 is not regulated on its own. And so they did thousands of tests across our country. And more specifically, here in Harris County, 46 out of 48 of the public water systems they tested actually found chromium-6. And woohoo, yeah. So that's the famous Aaron Brockovich contaminant, and I was contacted by some community leaders out in the A-Leaf area, and that's how we got involved with this. Really was community members reaching out to us and saying, can you help us? And we sat down in an initial meeting and thought, there's a serious need for more information. And that's one of the first places we go to is looking at where the areas are that we need more information on. Okay, so what we found when we were looking at the data was that the highest levels in Harris County all came back to one zip code in A-Leaf, 77099. It has the third highest chromium-6 levels actually in the nation. And I was contacted actually by a producer at KPRC that said, you know, I put this on a map and everywhere above 4.0 parts per billion is in this community. And at the time I was already working with them, but we didn't realize that there was that much of an outlier to the county. So anyways, as you can see right here off of the Beltway, and this is Silent right here. So we thought, okay, well, there's a serious need for further investigation. If you look at the average across Houston, it's 0.75 parts per billion. And in that one zip code alone, their levels range from 4.3 to 6.7 parts per billion. And I find it very hard to believe that there's not something out there that we need to be seriously looking at. So we sat down with the city of Houston and asked if they would perform additional testing. Now, this was not as smooth of a process as I expected it to be. I thought, well, hey, you know, we've got elevated chromium-6 levels, third highest in the nation. They're going to want to do something about it, right? Well, we had to continue organizing the community, have letters sent week after week, petitions, as well as multiple media stories before the city finally came around. And
what is the recommended lowest level?
so it's really, there's a disconnect. So California is the only state that has gone above the EPA's guidelines. And so there's not a standard for chromium-6 individually. The standard is for total chromium. So this is an example here, looking at chromium-6 is the yellow and the orange is chromium-3. So as long as the combined chromium, the total chromium, is under 100 parts per billion, there's no violation. When it could be, you know, say 90 parts per billion chromium-6, which is the toxic element, whereas chromium-3 is the nutritional element. So, you know, this is one of the reasons why the city didn't have to legally jump up and agree to any type of testing. But after the community continued pushing for testing and more information, they have actually agreed to do quarterly testing of chromium-6 in that zip code specifically for 1 year. So that will allow us to see if there is a specific well that the chromium-6 is coming from, or you know, maybe even narrow in even further and see if there's a potential polluter or source that needs to be addressed. So the EPA, right, the EPA is actually working on developing an independent standard. I believe the proposed standard is going to come out for review this year. So when we first went to City Hall, Public Works was incredibly defensive and saying, that's where you need to focus your efforts. You need to focus your efforts on the national level. And I'm going, this is now. That's going to take years. You know, we need to find out now what's in the water. Because if you're only giving us total chromium, we can't tell how much is there and how much is not. And the levels, this 6 parts plus parts per billion is around the average of what the Aaron Brockovich case had out in California. Yes?
How expensive is it to test for chromium-6?
You know, I even offered to pay for it. So if there's 9 distribution points, I'll pay for it. The lab I use is accredited to test to drinking water standards for chromium-6 for $18. And the city said, well, there's personnel time and analysis, and I get that. You know, there are other costs as well. But they've agreed to do it quarterly, and I did actually attempt to touch base with the council member about a week ago to see, you know, when they were going to start, and I've yet to hear back. So it's certainly something that just because they said, okay, we agree to test, we're going to stay on top of. Yes? So chromium-6 can come from a variety of sources. So chromium-3 and chromium-6 is extremely delicate. And for example, a pH change can alter chromium-3 to chromium-6 and vice versa. And so you can have it natural in the environment, but if it were to come in contact with something that would change the state of it, it could then go to chromium-6. But it can come from tanning facilities, metal working facilities. So it is definitely an industrial contaminant as well.
Well, it's also,
So there's signs that say that it's a wellhead area. And actually, when I talked with the EPA about this, they were one of the entities who helped feed me accurate information about chromium-6, because there's so many sources out there. And I don't want to just pull any old thing off Google. And the EPA helped me, and the project manager I was actually speaking with used to work in the oil field back 30 years ago. And they would actually create chromium-6 in a polymer and throw it down the shafts. And so there's always the potential for that. As old processes, he said he hopes they don't do that anymore. So. Absolutely, and folks think just because their waters may smell or taste fine or look fine that it is. And, the aesthetics is not always it can be an indicator, but it's not the only thing. Just because it tastes fine, smells fine, and looks fine, doesn't mean there's not anything in there. Okay, so our primary program is the San Jacinto River Coalition, and this is the one dealing on our path with the abandoned toxic waste. The coalition has been active around the pits since 2010, 2011, and this is an overview of the Superfund site, or aerial view. So here's I-10. And over here would be Baytown. This is the San Jacinto River. This is north going south. This is heading east on I-10. And the red outline is the northern pits, and the yellow outline is the southern pits. When you hear about the waste pits, you're probably most commonly hearing about the northern site. That is the one that is most talked about. How many people in here have actually heard of the San Jacinto River Waste Pits? Okay, great. So the blue line here is the preliminary perimeter for the site. That's an ambiguous line. It is not drawn for a specific reason. Just because this is the preliminary perimeter does not mean that's where any of the contamination stopped by any means. Okay, so the San Jacinto River Coalition is often referred to as the Superfund watchdogs. We have been active in going door to door and educating residents, finding out what the community knows about the sites, where the areas are that need to be strengthened. The group was also very active with Galveston Bay Foundation in helping get up the signs, the danger signs and the no fishing, the fish advisory signs around the area, as well as the fence that is around the site perimeter. because when the site was discovered, there were people actually on top of the Superfund site. Okay, we have seen drastic, or very dramatic, if you will, progress with this Superfund site with respect to the process. Our site was discovered in 2005. It was listed in 2008. And we made it, this is the Superfund snake, we made it down here to the proposed plan in less than 10 years. A lot of communities don't see that type of movement for 20, 30 years with Superfund sites. And us being able to impact the process and move it along like we have is a big part of why I founded Thea. It's because you saw the map. There's a lot that needs to be cleaned up. Patrick's bio, I mean, I don't think they've even seen any movement in like 10 plus years. So we want to continue to be able to continue doing this type of work and cleaning up our region. So going back very, well, as quickly as we can, to when the waste pits were created. In the mid-1960s, a paper mill in Pasadena called Champion Paper contracted a waste disposal company to haul off and dispose of their paper mill waste sludge. And this is on the southern site, as you can see, unlined pits that were dug on the bank of the San Jacinto River, and waste was pumped into the pits via barge. Over time, the river changed, as rivers do. We have historic subsidence issues in our area, and dredging also occurred. So I think it's important for us to be able to look through aerial photographs through time, starting in 1966. This is the northern pits, or the northern pits right here, and the southern pits right here. So as you can see, there was a lot of land there around it, at least to the north. Going here to 1978 looks quite different. 1995, and then 2010. So if you see the site today, go over I-10, look to the north side of the river, and you'll see an outline of orange buoys, and within that you'll see a rock area. And most people, if they even know what the pits are, they think that just the rock area is the pits. And when in fact, on an average tide, about 60% of the site is underwater. So you'll want to look within that orange buoy perimeter. And you can see here, the southern site has a shipyard facility on top of it now. Okay, so through time, while the waste pits were uncontained and abandoned, they were abandoned in 1968, the contaminants were able to make their way into the surrounding environments. And what you're looking at right now is one of the fish consumption advisory maps. And this is for PCBs and dioxins. Now, this advisory first started in 1990. Now, I can't tell you that 1990 is when our fish first became contaminated. It may just be when the testing first started. That's one of the problems we're continuously up against, is that our agencies say they don't have the funding to do more testing. I believe it's been 4 years since local seafood has been tested. Meanwhile, blue crab and some of the most famous delicacies, if you will, of our Gulf are under an advisory. And the advisory is that women of childbearing age, children, the elderly or weak immune should not eat any locally caught seafood. Men should not consume more than 1 8-ounce meal per month. And when the waste pits were discovered, it was said that they were largely responsible for this advisory. So, the companies today that are the potentially responsible companies or parties or PRPs, Waste Management of Texas and International Paper. So we have two of the largest companies who have acquired the companies that originally created the waste or did the disposal. And the site created such an imminent threat to public health and the environment that the EPA required the responsible parties to build a temporary solution until they could figure out a long-term remedy. So I love this drawing here by Nick Anderson. He's drawing one of the PRP's construction workers, putting basically a tarp and some stone on top of all of this toxic material. So there's a temporary cap on top of the pits right now. It's a geomembrane or geotext and geotextile fabric with crushed concrete on top of that.
Jackie, I had a question.
Yes.
You said that the testing hasn't been done of the water or the seafood for 4 years.
Yes.
Did they give a reason why?
Yes. Lack of funding. So it's Texas Department of State Health Services that does the fish tissue testing, and when we asked them in a meeting, maybe about a year ago by now, if they could do more, why they haven't done any more, it was a lack of funding, they said. So I think it should be a priority, though, in terms of funding for the sheer quantity that is consumed on our coast.
I
Yes.
think this might be slightly off subject, but I'm curious if consuming local fish is any better for me if I cook it with.
No. 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 The dioxin does not cook out. Okay, so being the watchdogs of this process, we were going through the documents, and then being a former community myself, and reading through these hundreds or thousands and even thousands of pages of documents in the Superfund process, and I'm finding all of these disconnects. And one reason why communities have issues, if you will, with the Superfund process is that those who have a financial interest in the outcome of the remedy often do the bulk of the work. And we were seeing that the waste pits were said to be in an industrial area, when in fact, here's the waste pits. Those of us that live there know it is highly residential and a river of high recreation. But the purple on this map is industry, and the yellow is residential. And there's a pretty large difference in this cleanup standard between residential and industrial standards. So there's another reason there that can go on. And so we had to actually contract with Dr. Sam Brody of Texas A&M to have him create a flood risk assessment of the site, in which he also looked at some of the social sciences that go along with the site as well. And here is, again, the pits right here. And this is a flood inundation, a simulation that he did. The dark blue is a tropical storm, and it goes, as it gets lighter, it goes up to a Category 5 hurricane, which we've luckily never had. But it shows you where, with these different categories, the river water would inundate. And he said extremely confidently in our press conference that if the river's floodwaters has been on your property or in your home, dioxin is likely there. And he said that. And dioxin is not something that is easily moved. It needs to be picked up. It needs a vehicle of some sort to move it. So once floodwaters go over a property, it could then settle out into the soil and stay there. And we have actually seen dioxin in the front yards of folks' home in the area.
Jackie, do documents of these type documents have a shelf life After 10 years in my dirt, does it subside? I mean,
Fabulous
does it-
question. No.
Then I hate you.
No. So it can degrade, and especially with sunlight. It does break down, and especially with sunlight. Now, the pits themselves, it's estimated that if they're left in the river, they would remain toxic for up to 750 more years. And the EPA estimated that, and we had several local groups double check that, local scientists or geologists, and everyone came up with about the same figure.
So I just play devil's advocate, so I might be okay if I leave the neighborhood with my kid playing in the front lawn, if he doesn't dig deep and make a big garden. But I sure as hell don't want him boating out there on the water.
I wouldn't do any of it. Yes?
Do you know what the degradation products are in sunlight? What's the degradation?
You know, it's been quite some time since I've actually looked at that process. Yeah, off the top of my, I'm sorry?
Are the degradation products toxic?
Yes, and I remember actually being in an EPA meeting in the community where they showed the different products or degradation products, and they were not friendly. So, yeah. And so just showing you a picture here to reiterate that we all here on our coast know the effect of storms here. And the San Jacinto River, a place on our coast and that is tidally influenced, is certainly no place for hundreds of thousands of tons of toxic waste to call home. So looking at all of the reports and seeing that, you know, we were said to be in an industrial area. We were not being given accurate storm attention. You know, I think they gave less than a page in a 300+ page document. Less than 1 page was given to the impacts of local storms on the feasibility of leaving this stuff in the river. And that's just mind-boggling. I mean, really? You know, these are underneath the cap. These are tiny, tiny little particles. And to think that 1 page was being given. Well, you know, there's the disconnect, as I said, where you have the potentially responsible parties that fund most of the work that goes on. So here we have the site here. And so this is north. And so daily tides and or storm surge is a vector to carry the waste north and then back south. Getting back to where we were about how there was this lack of attention in areas where it really should be given. I came across this lovely email, and I love black and white. I love the facts. If I don't have it in black and white, I'm not going to say it. And so I just love putting this up there, although most of us probably cannot read it. It is a bit grainy to begin with. But this email, what you should take away from this is it is an internal waste management email. So one of the companies that is on the hook financially from the EPA. And it is dated 5/31/2011. Now, that is the summer that temporary cap was built. And right here it says, the big plan is to sell this cap as part of the final remedy for the old cell area. Well, his words, not mine. So, things could be advantageous that we've discussed. Okay, now, seeing this and seeing the lack of attention, we thought, you know, is this why there's such a big tug of war? Or is containment potentially appropriate? So we hired a local geologist to look at the Superfund records of how the EPA handled similar sites. Now, she pulled the similar sites based on being located in a tidally influenced waterway, the same contaminants, and as well as one of the other parameters was the fish consumption advisory. And she found that there are only 7 sites that are similar across our country. And the EPA required removal of all 7 sites, and one of those was partial removal, I will say, and that is because the site was over 80 feet deep. Therefore, if they would have fully removed it, it would have caused the bank to destabilize. So that was really eye-opening for us and for our community members to see how our site was being handled here, where we have the company, the PRPs, advocating to leave the site in the river. And you have all of our local government, our communities, our environmental groups advocating to fully remove the waste pits. So as you heard earlier, a large part of our mission is public health and protecting public health. And one of the things that we wanted to do for the community to answer some of their questions and concerns was find out, are their concerns true or valid? Are there higher rates here of disease than elsewhere? And it took us many years to get Department of State Health Services to agree to study our community's health. Now, with that being said, they only pulled database information. And they only pulled database information for 17 types of cancer that we handed over to them. Now, these are the types of cancer that we most commonly see in the community, but that's not everything. You know, we have spent years working in the communities, but surely we have not heard everyone's story. So anyways, what we're looking at here is an overlay that we created of their data. And this is for childhood cancer. This census tract, the study area is broken down per census tract. The black dot represents the waste pits. And this tract here is Highlands, that's where I came from. And this line here pretty closely follows the river. And as you can see here, the red indicates elevated rates of cancer. And one of the really startling data sets that we received was for retinoblastoma. It's a rare type of eye cancer. And the incident ratio, the standardized incident ratio for children in Highlands compared to children who live elsewhere in the state of Texas is 16.4. And we have coalition members who have lost children or grandchildren to retinoblastoma. And we actually had 2 little girls in Highlands Elementary in the same class who both had retinoblastoma. And it's common that we hear about blastomas in town. One little boy was born, can't think of the more specific type, but he was born with stage 4 cancer. And he's in elementary school now, and there's 5 kids in this class with cancer. Yeah. So the study area is broken into the census tracts, and these are the census tract numbers. So this map here is the same area, same study, but this is the data for all ages. And that, shows much more red, many more types of cancer when you look at all ages and increased incident ratios. So we handed over, like I said, the 17 types of cancer that we most commonly come across, and 14 came back in increased rates within the study area. We weren't really expecting that. We thought, okay, we've seen, 5 cases of cervical cancer or, male breast cancer, we've seen 1. So we would tell that to the health department. We weren't expecting for that large of a percentage of what we handed over to come back. So we were actually surprised by this data. Like Lois Gibbs says, I don't believe a bunch of genetically dysfunctional people all moved to the same neighborhood. I do. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and skip through some slides here so that we can get to any questions. But very quickly, to discuss some of the turning points in the Superfund process, there were years of tug of war between the communities and the potentially responsible parties about the best possible remedy to the waste pits. And the process really started changing in December of 2015 when the EPA's dive team found a very large hole in the northwest quadrant of the site. And this was a sample grabbed from the river bottom just below, and the gray material is the waste sludge. That's the waste material. Now, depending on who you ask, this is from the EPA's report, depending on who you ask, they may still say the tap works. That's not what we say, and that's not what the EPA says. So the tap has undergone repairs just about every year, sometimes multiple times per year since it was constructed. And one of the reasons is simply because a river of high flow velocity is not appropriate for a tap to withstand. It's just simply not appropriate. And the Army Corps of Engineers, in an evaluation that they did over the site, they said virtually all releases by resuspension and erosion of residuals can be eliminated by excavation in the dry. And that's how we have been asking the EPA to require the site be removed, by isolating the site, as you see here. This is on the Ohio River. Isolate the site from the river, pump the water out, then excavate in the dry. And you can even create multiple dry zones. So even if there is any that spills over, it will not go. It will go into one of those dry zones before it goes into the river. And last year we were successful. We, being our group, as well as Galveston Bay Foundation, and Fox 26 was instrumental in helping us with this. We were able to secure all 8 of our 8 congressional reps in our region, and that was one of our goals from the beginning, was to gain bipartisan support and show, that this is an issue that is not about political lines. It's about public health, and it's about what's right. Okay, so in September of 2016, the EPA proposed to fully remove the San Jacinto River waste pits. And so that is the northern impoundments as well as the southern impoundments here. And we're currently awaiting their final record of decision. We did submit comments to improve this remedy. We feel there are a few areas that certainly can be improved upon. But that was one of the best days yet. Very big victory for all of us who have been working on this, and all of our community members as well as our bay, because we're pretty close to where we need to be, and we anticipate having the final decision by the end of this year. Don't be misled, there's a lot of inaccurate information out there, so consider your source. Please feel free to direct anyone who questions otherwise or may not have the best information to our group or Galveston Bay Foundation. We have petitions here, so how you can help. We have petitions here. If you'd like to sign, it would send to the EPA in support of their proposal. We also have flyers of letters and some talking points that you could send. This photo here is actually a bald eagle sitting in a tree over the river. We have an avid herdsman who lives on the river, and so I think it's just so beautiful. But proactively protect your family in general. That's something that Thea is very big on. We always need volunteers to make phone calls and stuff envelopes, many different things. So please consider volunteering as well as making a tax-deductible donation. We are a 501c3, and we're fighting some of the biggest companies in the world, so every bit helps. And do we have questions? Yes?
Would you say that international paper and waste entirely adversarial about just about everything, did they grant some things that they voluntarily say, yes, we need to do this or that?
Well, they have said on the record that they're working with the EPA and that they are working to clean up the site, but they were forced by federal order to participate in this process. And leaving the site in the river as they advocate for is not cleaning up anything.
So they act like they're being collaborative and working together.
Completely greenwashing.
But, okay.
Yes.
Since Trump has assumed the presidency, are there any unfortunate opportunities for backtracking on what has been decided?
Something important to watch is Susan Bodine. Susan Bodine was nominated to be the head of the Environmental Regs Committee, and she would actually have an instrumental role in the signing of the Record of Decision, and she has very close ties with the paper industry. So that's one thing that is absolutely on our radar. I'm hearing from Dallas, which is our region headquarters, that the changes in the administration are not going to impact the process. There's over 800 documents on the official record. There's substantial evidence that supports removal. So we're pushing forward, and may have to fight that much harder. Yes.
So who's going to bear the cost of this removal? The companies?
Fabulous question.
The government?
Great question. So the estimated cost of the EPA's proposed remedy is about $100 million. That is funded, and I have the financial liability documents, by the PRPs, not by the taxpayer. Now, if that site is left there, and if these guys get off the hook, which it happens, in the future, it would be the taxpayer that not only would bear the fiscal potential burden, but as well as the potential financial burden. Now, there's almost an $80 million cost difference between what the EPA, our elected officials, our community members, and our groups want, and what the parties responsible who foot the bill advocate for. Yes?
What does PRP stand for?
Potentially responsible party. Yes. Question in the back?
My question was going to be who's going to bear the
Ah,
cost. But I am
great
curious,
question.
has there been any projection about if they do the cleanup, how clean would that cleanup, or would there be residual, I assume there's still some residual dioxin in areas that have already been impacted by water and that sort of thing. But was there any sort of prognosis for
How good does it get?
Yeah.
Right. So the EPA has proposed to clean up to 200 parts per trillion. And we have requested that they go a step further and clean it up to 30 parts per trillion, which is the protective level for recreational fishermen. And basically, the silver lining here, if there is one, would be that our pits are still fairly well contained and fairly shallow. So they're only about 14 feet deep. So being able to actually go in there, isolate the source, and get most of that out of there, it is great. It is very likely that that they would actually be able to achieve that down to the 30 parts per trillion level. Yes?
Two questions. One, I'm wondering what time of year would they remove it?
Yes.
Is it hurricane? Number two, where would they haul this material off to?
Yes. So these are things that are absolutely being talked about and have been as well. So first of all, they estimate that it would take just over a year for the construction. Now, because of the threat of local flooding alone and then hurricanes, they have proposed to have an area of stockpile, but also to remove the current temporary cap in stages so that if something does pop up, they can then cover back the area that they took off without just going in there and completely opening up the entire site. They're also looking closely at building the cofferdam walls to maximum anticipated storm surge height. And there's a lot that goes into that with hydrostatics and a lot of fine details in engineering that is being generally talked about that will be very carefully discussed and detailed in the next phases. And where the waste would go is something that at this point we don't have in set in stone, because the next phases of the process, getting all of this set, all of the legal and financial things that need to take place, is going to likely take a couple of years. And by the time we get to that point of needing to for sure decide that, a new facility could open. And that's what the EPA told me. So they have potential facilities in Texas, inland. And so that's our big thing, is this waste needs to go inland to a safe storage facility.
Did we exalt? Fantastic. All right, let's thank Jackie
Thank
and
you.
Thea.